Hi, team. If you're watching this video, you probably already understand why meetings tend to be the biggest waste of our time and resources that we as employees and employers experience. In this video, I'm going to highlight 3 very specific and detailed strategies that will help us become much more successful in facilitating meetings, leading to higher levels of engagement and productivity. If you don't have a pen and paper ready, please pause this video and get one, because you're going to find these tips very helpful and easy to replicate in your next meeting. Okay, let's get into it. The first step is providing the required information ahead of time. When we do meetings, whether it's a virtual meeting or face-to-face, we all know that the meeting is going to occur. Hopefully, an agenda has been sent out. But if an agenda hasn't been sent out, we absolutely should be including that. On top of an agenda, we should be very clearly communicating ahead of time. Here's any updates from our last meeting. Or here's some background information that lets us know why we're all coming together. In addition to that agenda, we should be highlighting, here are our specific priorities for this meeting. Here's what we're intending to, or here's what we're hoping to accomplish within this next hour meeting or 90-minute meeting, however long it's going to be. Finally, we should be outlining for our audience and for our colleagues what we should expect, or what they should expect from this meeting. Are some of the topics going to be controversial? Or is the conversation going to be intense? Or do we expect everyone to include their feedback? Are we expecting employees to prepare anything ahead of time? By including all of this information up front, we're not wasting time early on in that meeting, sharing a bunch of information or creating a bit of a panic amongst everybody else at the table because there were things they could have done ahead of time. The second most important thing we can do to enhance our ability to successfully facilitate meetings is to make sure we start on time. If we have an organization and it's been kind of our practice where we always start 5 to 10 minutes late, well, that hour-long meeting is automatically turning into a 50-minute meeting or a 55-minute meeting, and we're already starting off behind the 8 ball. By making sure we start on time, we're setting a new precedence that in this 60-minute window, we're going to take advantage of every minute of it, as opposed to having a lot of time wasted just sitting around, whether it's playing on our phones, checking emails, etc., before we actually get started. Lastly, the biggest thing we can do to improve our engagement with our colleagues is to utilize what I call the 10% rule. Let me take a step back and give some additional context. So about 10 years ago, I became the president of a new organization where we were creating a ball for military veterans. And this had never been done before, at least not locally. And so we brought together a team of stakeholders. And as the leader of this organization, it was my job to call together this team of stakeholders to get us all on the same page. Well, we had an hour-long window for this kickoff meeting, and there were 14 of us at the table. Well, I did a good job of providing an agenda up front, saying I was looking forward to meeting everybody, and we even got started on time. The rest of the meeting went sideways. While it was important to me to make sure we were all on the same page, what ended up happening was I spent the first 50 minutes talking at my audience. Within 15 to 20 minutes, I could see some eyes starting to get a little bit cloudy, and we were starting to get a little bit tired, and the energy that was in the room before the meeting started was gone. But I stuck to it because I had all of these different agenda items that I needed to make sure to get across. At the end of that meeting, there was very little engagement and very little energy. In fact, people got up and walked out rather lethargically, and I vowed in that moment to never facilitate a meeting in that manner again. Instead, I've adopted this 10% rule. That rule comes down to I commit to never talking more than 10% of the time in any meeting I'm facilitating. Well, how do I successfully do that? Or how do we do that? As meeting facilitators, we often feel the need to talk the most. We feel the need to command the agenda and to make sure everybody stays on the same page. Well, there's 4 simple things we can do. First off, starting off with, as our job as meeting facilitators, it's our job to introduce the issue and to include whatever the potential constraints are on that issue. And so if we're going back to this example of creating a veterans ball, well, in that case, constraints we were potentially dealing with related to time, related to budgeting, related to manpower in terms of the amount of work that could conceivably be completed within a several month time frame. That was setting the agenda and setting out the important issues that we were going to be considering. And then it's time to hand it over to the audience. We have these set itinerary and these set agenda items. And it's our job to introduce each of those items, outlining potential concerns or issues that we need to be thinking about at this meeting, and then hand it off to the floor. This means becoming comfortable with silence and recognizing everyone sitting at the table is, number one, processing the information, and also trying to make sense of what is an appropriate response or what is an appropriate direction to take this conversation. While those conversations are going on, in an attempt to stick to our timeline, in an attempt to stick to the agenda, we have that opportunity and we have that responsibility to redirect conversation that starts going sideways. In large part, we can simply do this by asking questions. If a conversation starts going sideways, we can interject. Is this something that we want to be talking about now or need to be talking about now? Is this a talking point we can come back to later in the meeting? Or can we table this until next month? By asking questions, we're not getting into a rant about, well, this is what the agenda was, or we really should be doing this right now. It's by minimizing the amount of time we're talking. Throughout these conversations, the intent is to continue asking questions, encouraging not only different ideas to come out, but also encouraging different participants of the meeting to interject and to share their thoughts. That can be as simple as being very direct and asking, hey, Janet, or hey, Tony, I haven't heard from you yet. We haven't heard your ideas yet. What are you thinking about this issue? What are you thinking about this concern? What we're doing is being intentional in how we engage everyone at the table. At some point, because of that itinerary, we have to make some decisions. And those 3 decisions can be, we either come to a conclusion and we set the next steps. We can say we're going to continue this conversation in our next meeting, or we say we're going to table it until sometime further down the road. What we're doing here is coming to a clear outcome from each of those agenda items as it relates to our specific meeting that we're in. Lastly, it comes down to being very clear and specific about what just happened in the meeting with each of these issues and what are our next steps moving forward. Again, by following these three practices: number one, providing the required information ahead of time; number two, starting on time; and number three, following that 10% rule, we are going to be much more successful facilitating meetings, engaging our colleagues, and producing impactful, significant outcomes moving forward. Hey team, if you found this video not only helpful but enjoyable, hit that like and subscribe to Time for Development button and continue investing in yourself.